Do you know the real story of The Little Mermaid? Because if you don't, I'm about to blow your mind. So unlike a lot of the Grimm fairy tales and French fairy tales we're familiar with, this one isn't one that was necessarily passed down orally. I mean, it probably was before, but the story was written by one person, by Hans Christian Andersen, a Danish writer. And all of Hans Christian Andersen's stories have specific moral purposes, and they're specifically Christian. Get ready, because they changed this a lot for Disney, and it involves blood and murder. So in the world of The Little Mermaid, mermaids live for 300 years and then they turn into sea foam. They don't have immortal souls like humans. That's the big difference. And the Little Mermaid, who does not have a name in the actual story, when you turn 15, you just get to go to the surface and see what the human world's like. And she's obsessed with humans before she even meets the prince because she wants an immortal soul. She doesn't want to just turn to sea foam. She essentially wants to live forever. And then, of course, the shipwreck happens. She meets the prince. She saves him. And she's like, I super want to be a human now. So she goes to see the sea witch. So it's sort of the same rule. She has to get the prince to marry her within 3 days or she's going to die. But the taking of her voice is not like, oh, beautiful gold orb comes out of her throat. She just cuts off her tongue. Just cuts her tongue right off. She also tells her when you transform, it's going to feel like being sawed in half, and every step you take on human feet will feel like you're stepping on knives. And she's down with that. It is very mortify the flesh to purify the soul. So she makes the deal, goes to the surface, Prince finds her, and isn't into her. The fact that she can't speak makes him think she's kind of dumb or simple, as they put it back then. And he keeps her like a pet. Basically, like she literally sleeps at the foot of his bed and she's happy to be there. She's just like, yay. But he does not think of her that way. So he gets married to someone else and they go out on this ship to get married. And then her sisters show up the night before. She's like, oh crap, I failed. I'm going to die in the morning. But her sisters all show up and they've all cut their hair and sold it to the sea witch. And they're like, hey, we went to her and here's a knife. I think she's giving it to her right there. The sea witch said, if you go murder the prince, I think, and his bride, either way, murder the prince, let his blood slip onto your feet, you can come back and be a mermaid and you're not going to die and you'll get 300 years of mermaid life. And she thinks about it. She goes into his room, looks over at him sleeping next to his bride, holds up the knife, and she's like, nah, can't do it, can't murder. So instead, she throws herself into the ocean. She's like, well, time to die, I guess. But this is when the morality and the allegory come in. These air spirits that Hans Christian Andersen calls them just daughters of the air show up and they bring her spirit up out of the water. They're like, hey, because of your sacrifice and like your pure heart and, you know, that you didn't kill, you can come do good deeds with us, I think for 300 years still. And then after that, you get a human soul and you get to go to heaven. So like it's happy ish. I mean, you can definitely see why Disney changed it. And if you've watched any of these other videos of mine, you know I got to bring up my book, which is a fairy tale retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, or the shoes that were danced to pieces, Dust Spells. And The Little Mermaid, the original story, is actually a part of this book. The story is specifically mentioned by the characters, and some of the themes are a pretty integral part of what happens. So check it out if you want. If you want to follow me for more fairy tale stuff, I'll probably keep doing this because it's one of my favorite things. Don't have a degree in it or anything, just really, really obsessed.